So just to power off the car as much as possible here. Power off. Are you sure you want to power off? Place the foot on brake to turn power back on. And there you go. Power off. I like to disconnect the power before I start anything electrical, so I took off the positive. Made sure that it doesn't touch by accident with the Kleenex there. So put your hands underneath the trim and you'll hear it popping out of place. Keep doing that this way and that way. So this is what it looks like once you've popped off that leather trim. I'm gonna go do it on the other side now. So once all the screws are removed, it's rather simple. You just lift it upwards, unseat the different slots where it's held in place. Here, here. So you just lift it straight up once it's loosened and then comes out. So the one thing that was most poorly explained on other videos, including the manufacturers, was how to remove this item, this trim. So the rear part just pops up rather easily, but the front, it's got those same clips that held the side panels in place, those U-shaped gold colored clips. Anyway, you just have to reach underneath with a pry tool here like that, or with this, lift up over here, same thing on the other side, and then you can go underneath the center part and lift up as well, and then the piece comes out. Careful, there is some wiring that's stuck to it. That's for not sure what that's for. Anyway, there's wiring. So there's a few push pins underneath here as well that hold this trim together underneath the front dash. So after you pry off the push pins, that little panel releases quite easily. You see it here. Don't remove it completely at first. You'll need to disconnect the wire that leads to the speaker over there and the wire that leads to the footwell light over here. Those are fairly easy to remove. There's actually a little pin that needs to be pushed in and then it can be withdrawn. So to remove the panel here next to the dash, pull this aside a little bit, the rubber trim, and then you'll be able to yank this piece out. And it's a little bit hard while holding the camera, but there, you can see it's quite doable. And there we go. So this just goes forward and then it comes right out. Very easy. That's what it looks like on the inside. Okay, so to remove the dash, you first start with a pry tool near the rear of the screen. Pop it off, work your way across both sides, prying it off from the center to the edges, and then you lift upwards and pull towards you. So to remove the dash is held in place by more of these clips over here, so you need to pop it up, the front part, then reach behind and pop up the rear part, because it's held also in place by those same little clips all the way along. So a total of 3 on this side, 3 on that side, and same thing over there on that side, on the driver's side. So the yellow wire from the control unit, which plugs in here, the yellow wire goes in, fished into the passenger side door through there, along with the cable, comes out through here, and you can see comes in. I put some tape and zip ties, and it goes into the middle prong on this portion of this blue connector on the door. I just tucked it in, there's space, and I'm hoping that the contact will work. So to connect the ground wire, it's not that easy. It's a little bit tricky. It's kind of recessed a bit where you have to find it, but let's see if I can show you. If you see down over there, right there, that little spot right there, that bolt, that's the ground. To find it, back up. So this white molding is directly in line with that bolt. You go down in there, unscrew it with a socket wrench, and then attach the black grounding cable to it from the control unit. It's bundled in a wire together with the red one, which is for the power. Because both the negative and positive leads are rather deep, I suggest using a pair of insulated tweezers to grab the wire and to slide it into position. So to access the power, there's a bolt. I'll show you where it's hidden. If you look way up in there, you'll see that red cable with the bolt right there. That's what you need to access. I found a small screw, a small ratchet set helped. It's a number 10 socket that you'll need. So to pass these wires through into the area for the control unit, easiest if you remove the screw from here, then this panel will move upwards. You could just push it through by hand. There's a little gap there, and you just push the wires through by hand. So for the control unit, if you're looking at it, there's these oval controllers that you'll see as a silver line on the other side. But basically, however you do it, the screw at the top, or in this case on the bottom, with both screws on the bottom, the purple wire, which is AD1, goes to the left side with the screws on the bottom. The AD2, which is the blue, goes onto the right when those screws are at the bottom of the oval. There's a little channel for the blue wire to go through. After, when you put the light emitter unit, you will pass the wires through the same slot, and then you just need to screw it in place. To remove the door panel from the door, first you'll need to remove 3 screws. One is found under here, uses a 25 Torx. Second one is under here, and the third one is just behind this little panel here. This is easy to pull off. Like that. This one needs a bit of a pry tool. And then you just unscrew the Torx screws. before actually removing the door panel. I found removing this little speaker in the front door made it a little bit easier. Put in a pry tool just underneath here, lift up. There's a hinge over here that holds the top and two push pins, those brass push pins that hold it underneath. That way you can undo the wiring before you remove the actual door panel. So to remove the door panel from the door, find a pry tool, helps lift up. See, there's a little tab there. So you lift this up with the pry tool and just sort of pops off. The door pops off pretty easily. You enter a pry tool just on the inside of the lip where the window passes through. You pry it pulling upwards, go across. Then the ones on the side, you pry them towards you. The emergency brake enters in here, so you lift it up and then twist around gently. Now it's a matter of undoing these electrical harnesses. So this over here is the cables. You'll need to remove the light one, the footwell light, but make sure to plug it back, otherwise the car freaks out. You need to remove all these cables from their harnesses and assembly. As I noted, my car actually has a LED light emitter with the LED and everything, just doesn't have the little piece of plastic to attach it for the reserve over here on the door. So you have to remove all the wires from their respective locations. Detach the blue one. This is the driver's side. On the passenger side is where you join the yellow wire to the yellow wire in this assembly. To remove the emergency lock mechanism, lift up and then rotate, and it comes off. So once the door panel is removed, you have to remove all of these little plastic melted things that adhere the top of the inside leather door trim onto the door. So I've found that one of these shaving blade type assembly tools works quite well. They're quite sharp. You just slide it across. So actually using the razor blade, it was a pretty good solution. So I removed the plastic holding the leather trim in place just by removing that top layer of plastic, and then I was able to simply pop off the lower ones with a pry tool initially at the side, and then just pulling with my hands the rest, and they just broke off pretty easily. So now the leather trim comes off pretty easily, and we'll go ahead with putting the light in. So I applied one of those 3M double-sided tape strips along the edge of the door trim where the light's going to go. So it's just going to fit pretty snug right in there, the tabs pointing upwards. So you can pass the light cable through one of the holes on the side that's away from the speaker. Here's one of the first screws that I put in. So these are where all the screws are going to go. And there's a notch where I passed the other cable, the other light cable. So right there, if you look. So these kits come with plenty of washers. I suggest using 2 washers and a manual screwdriver when putting the screws into the lower portion over here. And the other thing I would suggest is keep one finger underneath, right where the screw should be coming out to see if it might be penetrating the leather. It's actually very thin. Please don't use an electric screwdriver, an electric power tool. So when tightening the lower set of screws. Be very careful not to over tighten them, or else it's going to come right through the leather. The ones higher up, closer to the window, is less of an issue. So once we're finished putting all the screws back in place, the wires are passed, it's time to put the storage light in place. The easiest way is by turning this over. Over here, right where the screw was, just grab it and pull it out. It comes off pretty easily. So the one for the front door, it's very simple. It's this trapezoid, pretty much figure shape, with the light emitter going right on pretty much vertically. So it kind of looks like a T. Anyway, so the light emitter's on, there's the wire. Just pass it right through the original hole. Actually, mine's one of the earlier models, and there's still the wire for the original ambient light in this position. They just didn't put in the actual light in that position. Okay, so I'll be fishing the wire through the front. So this is the cable that you need. It's got the two bulky pieces of plastic on it, and this is where you fish initially. Comes out there, you pull it through, then you'll need to fish through this. So you fish the wire from the hole in front on the door right through to the hole where the speaker was, and then you're going to, well, sorry, you send the fish, and then you will pass the fish through that snake to catch the wire that's already there. So the yellow wire from the control unit, which plugs in here, the yellow wire goes in, fished into the passenger side door through there, along with the cable, comes out through here, and you can see comes in. I put some tape and zip ties, and it goes into the middle prong on this portion of this blue connector on the door. I just tucked it in, there's space, and I'm hoping that the contact will work. Basically, to reinstall it, you take first the isolation material, you place it onto the door appropriately, you flip it up, you put on all the wires, and then you put the isolation material over it. You can probably just put the isolation material after, but whatever. You connect up all the connections and you're good to go. So now to remove the door panel, it's pretty much the same as the front doors. There's little clips holding this door panel onto the top right there. A little clip, I don't know if you could see it well, but it's in there. Anyway, there's 3 of these. Then there's several clips around the perimeter of it. So you can start just by lifting it up over here, and then these will be easy to pop right off. I use a pry tool and just lift it up. So just like the front, once you remove the door, what you'll want to do is you first remove the isolation material. Then you disconnect all the wires, unclip everything, and then you can move over. You need to take off these clips holding the leather portion onto the door panel. So just like on the front door, I found a window scraper is the easiest way to get these ones off. I can't scrape it and hold the camera, but you get the idea. These ones that are recessed, they're a little bit trickier. I've used scalpels, X-Acto knives, and sometimes pliers to try and break these little rings off. So for the rear doors, we're going to grab the shorter of the two light channels. So these are the straight light channels with the light strip in the middle. Tabs go towards the window, and the tabs go on the surface closest to the door. So basically you just apply or put down the light strip on the 3M tape that's already applied here. The tabs go up, just position it in the middle, and then you can actually pass these light cables through these support, and there's an opening here. These are the supports for the insulation material on there, and this little oval over here could also be used to pass the cable. So once you're able to pry this little panel off, in the older Model 3s, mine was from spring of 2019, it's an SR Plus, so it actually still has the light emitter, it just doesn't have the little diffuser at the end to emit the light, and the software in the car does not allow for this to function. Anyhow, you just place the new light emitter in there. So the light emitters for the back look like a straight line coming out of the light emitter is the diffuser, so it's just a straight extension sort of thing as opposed to the T for the front. Okay, and the shape is also a little bit different if you look. So basically what you do then is you just place this into the slot that's designed for it, and then you place this back where it belongs. So something that you've got to know is that the right and left sides are not the same actually. Okay, that's because there's a certain directionality and shape. So if they were the same, then this would be on the other side and there wouldn't be enough room for the light emitter. So the right and left are actually different. So just take care when placing those in. Once it's placed, you just go back, you feed the cable through the hole that you see there, and you snap it back in place. The circle is where the screw goes. You just snap that back in place. So here's the door panel for the rear. Everything's all hooked up. So this cable over here is the cable coming from the light emitter for the little storage unit, which is behind here. Comes up to the barrel connector. This one is a lead to go to this light emitter over here, connected to the optic cable. This is the other connection for the light emitter going to the light to the rear of the unit. It's held in place by zip ties. The connections to the light emitters were kind of loose and I was just afraid it might fall off, so I put in some electrical tape to hold it in place, but probably unnecessary. So to remove the cover from the B-pillar, there's this push pin. You undo that. Then what you do is you separate the rubber seal from the plastic, both in front and in back. Once that's separated, you just push inwards right at the junction of the white and the black material. You just push it inwards, the whole thing pops off, okay? So at this point, to fish the wires, just remove this seal, make a small puncture right in the middle. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your fish, you're going to fish starting here out through this. You're going to remove this piece, this rubber seal, Once your fish comes out here, you thread it through here, and then it's going to hopefully come into this hole here where you can catch it and meet up with the barrel connector that's coming from the front. So remember, this is the one where the junction leads to only the 4-pin connector and the barrel connector, and this is going to go through here and into the door. So the wire is now fished. I put that oval unit down in the recess down there. It's going all the way to the front. Now you can see it goes just in front of the seat belt, through the hole there, through this, through there, you see it, and out through here. And there's my connector. So now just need to pop this back in, and then connect up the door. So to reassemble the door, I first start by reattaching the insulation material. Then going from the door, there's the wire for the footwell. Then the wire comes up, clips into here, speaker cable. Then you have the wire for the Tesla original storage space lighting. You have over here the controls for the window to go up and down. And this, I don't remember what this is for. So the connector from the lighting kit, the Hansshow lighting kit. So the shortest wire goes to the light in the storage compartment. The two other ones go to the extremes of the light strip at the junction of the plastic and the artificial leather at the top of the door. Then held it in place just with a zip tie over here, and then pass it through. There's an existing hole right here, so I'm going to pass it through there to connect up with the wire that I just fished through. To reinstall the door in the back, it's easiest to first hang on the top, put the slots right, the tabs right through the slots, and then you just snap them in place. So to pass these wires through into the area for the control unit, easiest if you remove the screw from here, then this panel will move upwards. You could just push it through by hand. There's a little gap there, and you just push the wires through by hand. One thing that wasn't well explained in other videos is how to hook up the light for the cup holder lights, where to pass it. So what I did was I took a 2-to-1 splitter, passed one part of it here for the light on the control unit. Then taking the second part, I'm going to run it underneath here, and then there's a tiny little hole just underneath where the screw is that holds the cup holder in place. I'm going to pass it through there. So this is the cup holder cover. It took me a while to figure out how to hook up the light. Maybe I'm just no genius, but anyway, there's this little cable that was tucked in there. I didn't see it. I thought I kept struggling with trying to attach it onto one of these two leads, but obviously that was wrong. The light conducting fiber optic cables here, which was not obvious to me initially. Anyway, everything's plugged back in, the cigarette lighter, the battery, or whatever this electronic thing is, the light for the storage compartment, and I'm now going to connect up the light emitter to the fiber optic. So once the light emitter is attached to that little cable, you just press the unit back into place. So when you're installing the light bar on the central console, just make sure to first put in the top part. There's a track on the charging pad. There's a track where this has to sort of hook onto, and then make sure to do the same thing in the back. There's a few little hooks like that where it also needs to latch onto, and then screw it in place. So this is probably the easiest part of the install, to put the lights on the seat back. Basically, you start at the top, you pinch it in under the plastic. Trust me, it's not that hard, it just takes 2 hands. And then you keep pushing it underneath the plastic, between the plastic and the leather, all the way down. Now, to fish the footwell lights for the rear, here's the 4-pin wire that you need to fish. So you can go underneath the carpet, and the carpet ends right here. So it just comes out right there underneath the rails. That way it won't get cut or run over by anything. Underneath, you can't see it on this video just because it's so dark, but underneath, take my word for it, there's 2 metal rods, sort of small rods. Each of them go in the axis of the car. I'm going to zip tie the light emitter onto those. Alright, so to wire it up, what I've done is, this is the wire coming from the long cable that runs from the front of the vehicle and goes into the door. This here is the light emitter that's underneath the seat. This here and this here is part of the trim of the light that you just, is very simple. You just push it in from the top going down to the bottom on both sides. Can't show a video because holding the camera, basically you just push it in and you tuck it in going down. In any case, so the wiring took first a 3-to-1 split, and then connected that up to the 2-to-1 split. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, attach it to the cable that came from the front. One of the wires will go to the light emitter for the seat back. The other one will go to the light emitter underneath the seat. The other 2, one will go to the light emitter on the seat back. The other one will go to a light emitter on this light strip next to the central console. So what I've done is I've taken the light cable and what I'm trying to do is feed it right underneath that trim. That's the fan, so I don't want to obstruct the fan, so I'm just passing this underneath that trim, and you can see where the light's coming out on the other side. So that's where it's going to pass through. There's a small channel, you can see. I'm going to pass it through there. So in order to remove the trim from the dash, you need to get rid of the glue from these connecting points. So what I found that works is just with a box cutter to cut the glue at these points where they're held together, and then you're able to use a pry tool. As you see, this one's been pried off, so I put the pry tool on this side and gently push up, and it's able to break, as long as there's not too much glue, it's able to break the little bit of glue that's on the under surface that exceeded the ability to cut. So now I've managed to remove all those clips. But there's one thing I should point out. At the very end, you'll be forced to make a decision. Which one do you keep? Either this tab here or the tab that went across to hold this in place. I'll show you what it looked like on the other side. So you can't keep both. I'm guessing that the tab that sticks out, this one, will provide more stability than the one that holds it down, because holding it down, I can always accomplish that with the glue. So I chose to destroy the clip holding it down. I did that mainly just with a pair of pliers and lifting it up gently, and it snapped. So once all the tabs are broken, you just lift it up and out of place. So after you've removed the original trim from underneath the dashboard, I actually stained the wood here, sanded it slightly, then stained it, and then put a varnish on it. I never really liked that nondescript brown wood. I find that the black on black or black on gray, especially in a black car such as mine, looks better. So stained it black. Technically I used an espresso stain from Varnish brand, and then used the varnish coating to give this gloss black finish. In any case, getting back to the lighting build, you'll notice that there's two different lighting strips that attach onto the underside of the dash. One is straight. This goes on the passenger side. The other one is notched for the steering wheel on the driver's side. So just prepare them on the correct side so you don't mix them up. It would be unfortunate to secure them in place and then realize it's the wrong side. Also, when doing this, make sure you have a soft surface. I've used just towels so that you don't scratch the finish of either the original or the altered dashboard. Once you have it in the correct orientation, you can use these prongs as a guide to securing the light strip in place. As such, just take care. What's important is here at the edge, this needs to pass underneath the edge over here. You don't want to leave it dangling out at the side. You want to make sure that it's actually underneath when you secure the trim in place. Otherwise, it winds up dangling outside, which would not be pleasing aesthetically. So then what you need to do is you use a glue gun and just hot glue all these spots in place. So the technique I used was I was holding down the trim while with the other hand applying the glue so as to form a nice tight seal and well seated on the trim. Okay, so the dashboard is back in place on the dash. So should have showed you images before, but it was hard to do with being just one person, but it is doable. The entire build is doable with just one person. I did it myself out in the middle of nowhere, okay, in the country, with not much tools. So basically, at the back end of this trim, there's some curved prongs that go into holes. With your hand, if you push your hand underneath, you can just nudge those into the holes. There's one here, there's one here, one there, and then here and near the end. So you just nudge those gently into the holes. They're curved, so once they're in their groove, the back part slides in, and then the whole thing just sort of sinks right into place. And then there's a few of those brass clips. They just tap down very easily going across. At the end, on the edges, I have, this is for the air vent light. This one is for the light emitter at the end. here. This cable is for the middle portion. Let's see if it's oh, it's not hooked up yet. This little bit of black from the tint should come off after. The air vent is not obstructed. I don't know if you can see, but it's not obstructed, which was a concern of mine when I was doing the build, because I was afraid. You could see the cable just on the side here going to the left instead of going in front of the air channel. So now I just have to make the final hookups and close this. So to put the leather trim back over this light strip on the middle console, you'll notice that there's both these brass clips, but there's also these clips over here. So those need to clip into place as well. So the trickier part is the front part. So I'll start over there. You have to line up those brass pins. So I'm going to start at the front and then work my way to the back. So with regards to closing things up, I'm going to start with the B pillars, the cover for that. So this will tuck underneath the molding at the rear. You'll have to pull this on top. Make sure that these pins are lined up with the holes. It needs to go underneath the white trim at the top, and then it'll need to be attached with that push pin at the bottom in the front. So with the lower trim now in place, time to put in the top trim. So this one has a few places where it attaches both to the trim at the bottom. Let me show you. There's such as this, it goes into the bottom, and then this tab here goes in here. You see, such as where is it? So these are the tabs that need to go in on the front. So I'm just going to go over and push them into place. Now that they're in place, I'm just going to use one of my spudgers to pull the trim on top of it. There we go. They just seem to find their way in to the right spot, and it closed up pretty nicely on the back portion. I'm going to do the front portion now. So once the trim's in place, just check that all lights are functioning properly. Which they are. So then basically just reverse order everything from how you took it off. You'll start with, you'll go afterwards with this triangular piece, which you can see just the plugs in very simply like that. Afterwards, I'll put the trim down here. Sorry, I'll put the trim underneath the glove compartment, and then this long L-shaped piece here, and then finally the one that goes over here, which is this one. So after the side panel is placed, just remember to hook up the speaker and the light and push this back into place. There's a hinge there in the back that needs to be slid into, and then it's a matter of just the push pins. There's 4 of them. After you've put the trim underneath the glove compartment, the next one to put in is this one. There's 2 hinges at the front which needs to be slid in. Once that's done, there's a clip at the rear portion of it that needs to go in, and another brass clip right around here needs to be pushed down. start at the front and then push these two down, and then there's a push pin over here that just needs to go in place, and then you're ready for the final trim. So this one just hinges in place at the bottom and pushes in at the top. So here's the completed install. The footlights, the lights on the door, the lights on the storage compartment. Here's the dash lights and air vent lights. Here's the lights along the center console and the cup holders. Footwells on both sides. In front, also on the air vent and the dash. Along the trim on the door panel. Storage compartment. The trim on the passenger side rear door and the storage compartment light. Not that strong, but over there. Footwell and seat back. You can see the seat back over here as well.